irreversible process, and it is an important determinant of the national economic growth and poverty reduction also. So, real estate sector, as we all know, is a very important sector for the economy. It is one of the largest contributors of the economy, and also it is the second largest employer also after agriculture sector. And according to some estimates, the contribution of the real estate sector in 2018 to the GDP was around 6 to 7%, but it is expected that this will go around 12 to 13% in 25 or 26. And as we all know that real estate sector is an important sector with a strong forward and backward linkages to the various sectors of the economy like steel, cement, finance, tiles, bathroom fittings, you name any sector. It is directly or indirectly it is impacted by what is happening in the real estate sector. So apart from the real economy, an upswing in the real estate sector has strong implications for other sectors and especially for the financial sector. And if the real estate sector is growing, then generally we can say that the economy will get a boost, and our economic growth will also be good. Now, coming to the present day scenario, what is happening in China, as we all know, prior to that we all faced the setbacks due to COVID-19 pandemic. The supply chains were disrupted, projects, construction activities were halted, but now again we are back to the original, and now means those supply chains have been re-established, and now things are more or less back to where they were before COVID-19 pandemic struck us. And now there are two important things that are worrisome for us, not only for real estate sector but for the whole economy as a whole. Number one is the currency depreciation that we are experiencing is not well for the economy. So we have to think something about this currency emergency. And also, means as we all know that Europe and US, they are also facing recession, and China is also, all of you must have heard about what happened to Evergrande and the real estate sector in China. Means some people say that the balloon has busted, and there are a lot of issues about the real estate sector in China. But thanks to RERA in India, we were able to avoid that kind of balloon. So now role of the private sector is important, but the role of the government is also equally important. And in Government of India, we have taken a lot of measures for the overall growth of the real estate sector in the country. I am not going to dwell upon all the measures that we have taken, but I would like to emphasize on two important pieces of legislation. One is the RERA, which came about in 2016, and it has infused transparency in the dealings in the real estate sector. And as we all know that prior to introduction of RERA, there were large-scale problems in the sector, and developer community, not all of them, but some dark sheeps, they would divert the money collected from the home buyers towards other unscrupulous activities. They wanted land banks and all that. So some projects which were launched before 2016, they are still stuck up. But after the introduction of RERA, we have inbuilt mechanisms to ensure that money collected from customers or home buyers is actually spent on the development of the project only. Means 70% of the money has to be kept in a separate bank account, and it has to be spent on the development of the project for which the money has been collected. So this, we are able to stop this large-scale diversion of money after the introduction of RERA. And RERA, like it is for ownership housing, but ownership housing is not the only model. And if you see the census figures for 2011, more than 1.1 crore houses were lying vacant in the country. Why were they lying vacant? Because landlords, they did not have the confidence to let them out, because they thought if they give their premises on rent, they'll never be able to take back the possession. वो होता था ना कि कब्जा हो जाएगा, जिसका कब्जा है वही ओनर है. So that kind of scenario was there. And on the other hand, simultaneously we had a huge housing shortage in the country. There was a technical group which was set up by our ministry. It came up with a report that around 1.87 crore housing shortage was there in the country. Now you see the irony, you see the paradox. On the one hand, you have more than a crore houses lying vacant in the country, and on the other hand, there was a shortage. So there was a need to the overall rental segment in the economy, and we have states, they enacted their rental laws in the beginning of 50s and 60s. So they were all outdated and they needed replacement. So we in the ministry, we prepared a Model Tenancy Act with all the latest provisions to give confidence to the landlord. And if anybody is interested, it is available on our website. You can go and check it. So these are the two important things that we have done for the industry as a whole. And then there are many other things which I want to talk about, like how we can slum-proof our cities, and how we can make the markets work for the poor, how we can kind of come up with right kind of incentives and disincentives through the market, so that affordable housing is.
Maybe take 2 minutes to discuss, give you a background about who we are. So my name is Kishore Batija. I'm MD at K. Reja Corp Group. We are a real estate developer in this business for last 4 decades. And our businesses in real estate span across residential development, commercial development, hotels, shopping centers, malls, and retail. Maybe the popular brand where everybody would know about us is the departmental store called Shopper Stop. That's our retail front of our business. Having mentioned about our business, I thought maybe then I can delve a little more on the real estate environment, as what has been and what is it today. As we are all aware, real estate contributes over 7% of India's GDP. But unfortunately, it has been for very long a very unregulated business, and you had a lot of people who just had money and who had an appetite for taking a risk would come into real estate, and it was like mostly a fly-by-night operator, good part of them. And that's where we ended up with a lot of issues of defaults, violations, etc. For such a large part of our economy, not to have a regulator was one particular issue. And with the current government having introduced RERA, I think so there was something which was very long due, but I think that is a very, very important piece of legislation which has brought what should I say, a total control of the whole the business. As a matter of fact, we have, I think so, if I don't have the exact data, my colleagues in LS Forest and Anurag might be able to do, the number of developers who have been in this business has reduced drastically, because obviously all the people who were basically there and to make a quick money on them have already left, because the whole regulation is very correctly and rightly so protecting the consumer. So RERA has been a very, very good and important piece of legislation. Now, the growth of residential real estate is obviously what we are mainly concerned about. But I think so it will be good to even maybe go back and see as to how we are doing as a country and the impact of the residential real estate which happens. In the last, since the IT development, as we are all aware, has been a huge driver for the country, a very huge driver. Since the 2K, as what we all knew about the problem of 2K, when the century changed, and then that's what drove India and got India a foothold into the IT business. And since then, the IT business in India has grown tremendously. So that today, the service sector as such itself has grown, but I think the IT business has grown to such an extent that today, 6 of our cities today are contributing to they are the top markets in the world if you compare with New York, London, Tokyo, Shanghai, Beijing. It's only because of our cost arbitrage and the talent available in the country. Just to give you an example, we as a country, we are constructing almost 3.5 crore square feet of office premises, which is used for IT purposes. 3.5 crore. And if you look at it, at 100 square feet per person, it creates an additional employment of 3.5 lakh crore. And one employment in IT creates 5 back-end employees in terms of service requirement, fooding, transportation, etc. So IT per se being an what should I say, an earning opportunity is also a huge opportunity for the service sector, the support sector which is required for it. Real estate per se, we know, has got integration to almost 40 industries down, and the volumes of construction obviously are going up. So the idea of emphasizing about commercial real estate to you was that the kind of employment that it's creating, the income that is being generated in the hands, the income which is being generated for the support services and for the authorities who have, to whom development fee, etc. are paid, property taxes paying, is creating a huge revenue generation, which is positive, and that is also driving to a large extent your requirement for residential real estate. So, having said that, the residential real estate, we know, has been growing. Population has been one driver. Urbanization is a very big driver. I think so, to my knowledge, if I am not correct, almost 27% of India's population are today urbanized. But if you look at a city in China, more than 50-60% of the China population is in urban areas. So need for employments, etc., are going to drive down to people to urban centers, and there would be a pressure. We have our urban centers are growing. I was just hearing Mr. Abhijat speaking in the other thing, that the number of local bodies, etc., which they have incorporated in the last 1 year itself has been a huge growth, which obviously is one sign that there is a huge growth in the urban centers. So I was just comparing at one time that if you look at China, China has got, I think, about more than 150-60 cities, which is the population of more than 1 million, whereas we are just 1/3 of that. So there is a need to growth, and there will be a growth driven by the businesses, the need for growth, the need for income, and the job opportunities. Coming back to so we mentioned about commercial, which has been a very large driver. I mean, apart from the driver of employments, etc., it's also a very large. It's a large area where you attract a lot of foreign investment, which is what the country also requires. There's a need for a lot of funding for development. to the last data available with me from 2017 onwards, close to 80,000 crore of private equity investment from foreign has come into the commercial sector. So the funding is a very, very critical important, getting funding at a lower interest cost, etc. And people who are willing to participate in the business and not just lend money is what we require. We want people who will invest. So this private equity of 80,000 crore I mentioned to you are people who have invested in the commercial business. They are not just lending it to you like a banker. So that way it gives the business who's receiving this money a better latitude and a better scope of performing, and people who are putting in that money are also having a skin in the game. Now this whole issue of foreign equity coming inside has also happened mainly because the whole commercial real estate business has become very structured, very transparent, and it is at a level where people are comfortable enough that they can invest money into it. There will be an opportunity for them to make some income on it and then take it back to the investors from the country they come in. So I think that the important part which has happened in the last 5-6 years, thanks to the government's contribution of having various initiatives. One is that creating the platform. So I think so RERA, as I mentioned to be, has been coming, now if I'm looking at it from a residential perspective, RERA would be one very, very critical legislation which is going to help. The Model Rental Act, where Sir also spoke about, is very important, because if you look at an investor who comes from outside, who are used to very kind of a structured organization, in the US typically nobody makes any agreements specifically. There are model agreements. The variables of the model agreement is what you only sign, which is just one pager or a 2-pager. Whereas in India, because maybe unfortunately because of our legacy, the land is a state subject, so every state has made their own regulations, etc., and have also had different practices. Fair enough, it does happen, but I guess I think that the important part is that the government is recognizing that these issues are there, and then these issues have to be streamlined. Because if you have investors, why investors? If you as a consumer are going and shifting your job from maybe from Pune to Lucknow, it's neutral. You go and take a job, you go and stay, take a house on rent and stay there and work there. But you are not to be, obviously you're not wanting to have hassles that there are different regulations in different city. You want streamline. You want something to be there. We are in India, but and then you obviously don't want to be hampered by having regulations and compliances happening state-wise. So I think the larger issue which the government was working on, and the step of RERA, the model rental agreement, is something that will go a long way in improving and then creating a transparent model. So although foreign direct investment in residential real estate has been happening, but I think so it's not been happening at a level what commercial real estate has been able to attract. Because for us at this growth phase, we need to be having more and more capital, and that will come in as we grow ourselves, as our companies, our businesses grow. There will be a lot of contribution of money, but at the same time the accelerated growth that we require, because all said and done, we have a backlog. There was a statistic somebody shared that we are constructing 3 houses per 1,000 population per year, whereas the required construction rate is 5 houses per 1,000 population per year. So obviously it's a challenge in the way, because we have a backlog. We have a need for the population growth, urbanization, plus there is also a pressure of renewals, because this figures what we talk about is always the new requirement. But then we have cities which are 40 years, 50 years, 60 years old, which have older constructions which need to be renewed. So as much as it's a challenge, but I think it's an opportunity for people who want to be in this business, and the kind of development that we are seeing in the country, I think so people are rising to it. My other colleagues from Naretco, with whom I also work a lot, we are a body under the Ministry of Housing itself, and we have a very large number of developers, and they will speak more about it. So I think so it's a huge opportunity, and I think so the kind of growth that we have seen in the last 5-10 years has been very, very encouraging. There are other sectors, the hospitality sector, which has been growing, bringing in large investment. And I think that the larger issue is that all these kind of sectors are creating a huge employment, and that is critical. We have seen our per capita income growing, but there is an opportunity to grow further. So I guess it's a time for all of us to grab the opportunity and work towards for maybe a larger growth than the 7% GDP, etc. that we have been talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhatija Sahab. Hello. Thank you, Bhatija Sahab. One issue which I want you to touch upon, one more issue which I want you to touch upon is about REITs. What is happening in the space, and why it is not that popular in India? What are the reasons?
Hello. Yeah. Hello. Giving you a little background, REITs as just to give a little background about the product. We know all about companies where we are who are listed. These companies are separate legal entities, and those of us who want to invest in these companies go and buy the stocks on the market, or when they come out initially, they do an IPO. REIT is a little different kind of a structure where it's not a company, it's a trust. So what the REIT does is that it buys assets which are income yielding. The objective of the REIT is that they will be earning stabilized income which are growing and would not be doing, I would say, anything speculative, or they will not be doing much of development. So the objective of the REIT is that people who invest in a REIT are people who are looking for a regular income. A company need not declare a dividend. So you may have a company which you own stocks but hardly pays you anything, because your gains is coming through appreciation, which when you sell you would make money. But the concept in a REIT is that you are getting regular outflow as by way of dividends. So 90% of the income earned by a REIT has to be distributed. So they are controlled in a very different manner to cater to people who are looking at regular income. So we have at the moment 3 real estate REITs in India which are registered. Embassy as a group in Bangalore listed the first REIT. We at Rahejas, we listed our REIT called Mindspace. Now we are almost 2 years. We listed our REIT, as a matter of fact, just when COVID started and the market was bleak, but we felt it was a very correct and a good product to bring to the customers, to the investors. So we came and we have been successful. Our REIT today as a whole is valued about 20,000 crore rupees. So typically as a REIT you declare dividends on a quarterly basis. So you are giving a return at almost about 6-7%. If you look at it pre-tax, it may sometimes go up to 10%, which is a regular income which you can bank upon to get. Now, world over, so in the REIT what happens, we develop the office premises and we sold them to the REIT, and the REIT then runs it I mean, we as managers run it, and then and those incomes, rental incomes, etc., coming are declared as dividends to the to the unit holders. So, like stocks, units of REITs are listed on the stock exchange. You can buy it, you can trade in it, you can sell it. We are working with the government to make it that you make the threshold investment into REIT at a very low level, so that anybody who wants to invest. So like today for you as an investor, if you want a rental income from an asset, it is impossible for you to go and buy a property worth 1 crore rupees and then you give it on rent, and then find out who the tenant will be, the good tenant, not a good tenant, paying his rentals on time or not, then there will be repairs and maintenance. So you are actually having a piece of a real estate, but through a REIT. Now, in India at the moment, the REITs are of only two types of assets: office premises and your infra projects. So we have a REIT regarding power transmission. NHI is coming out with a REIT for the income that they earn from the highways. The model is that you are investing in a highway, you're getting rental incomes from the tolls, etc., and that becomes and gets added to the REIT. But internationally, you find REITs happening in every and all kind of assets. You will have offices, you will have hospitals, you will have hotels, you got malls, even student housing. REITs today in REITs in the US are even investing into hostels that are constructed by them in educational institutional campuses. So REIT as a matter of fact, bulk of the whole real estate in the US, which is the oldest market of REIT, is in the US. Singapore, etc., have now come up to be another right. So at the moment, I think so the REIT valuation in India would be maybe about close to 75,000 crore rupees, but it's a huge opportunity. And this is all happens because there is a very strict laid down guidelines as to how a REIT will be managed. They cannot take loans over X amount. The asset which they have should be earning income. Only a certain percent of the asset can be in development where they can construct and do. Otherwise, it has to be predominantly, it has to be a rent yielding asset. So REIT actually, according to us, is the future, because there is a lot of also tax benefit which is given. So the whole tax impact on the investor is much lower than what tax he would normally pay if he was investing and earning income from a regular listed company. Thank you. I hope that's...
Thank you so much, Bhatija Saab, for highlighting the importance of RERA as well as the Model Tenancy Act, and also telling us more about how our 6 cities, they are competing with the cities around the world in the IT space, and also you spoke about growth of the urban centers, and a very important thing that you said was about lending versus the investment. People are more often, means they are more likely to be interested in lending rather than by investing and be a part of the project. And that is why I asked you to talk about REITs, because that is one instrument where people can co-own so many properties instead of lending and then waiting for a fixed income to come by way of interest. So thank you so much. And now I would like to invite Shri Kapoor from Liasis Foras to have his say on this topic. Thank you. I think he has a presentation also. Yeah.
Thank you, Kapila ji, panelists sitting on the dais, esteemed audience, and for giving me opportunity to come and speak. Just to give a brief, that we are a real estate research and data analytics company. We track around 60 cities or over 20,000 projects, which is builders projects. and we do assess the real estate performance in lights of construction progress, sales progress, price movements, and other aspects. I have put together certain empirical perspective of what could be, what happened during the PMAY, how much of supply which has come, the public data is available. I wanted to really compare with respect to the PMAY productions, how the private sector's productions also has really moved in. But before starting the presentation, I want to really take you back about real estate, post-liberalizations from 2005 onwards, when the FDI opened in the real estate sectors and we saw exuberance and the money started flowing in the markets. So the way I see the real estate market cycle can be divided into two parts. From 2005 till 2014 was a period when the price growth used to be a parameter to assess the growth in the property prices. The production and consumptions was not really being a major measurement on the perspective. The land prices during the time really grew over 10 times. We got a lot of financializations and there was not much of the regulations. And that is where we saw, builders default taking place. There are distress projects came into being, many defaults which has happened, and that is where the RERA came into being. So, RERA has been a big enabler for the real estates, bringing the prudence, bringing the supply in the streamline, consumption is the streamline. So the way I talk about, there are two cycles of the real estate market. 2005 to 2015 was price-driven real estate market, and post-2014 it was a production and consumption-driven real estate market. And to some extent, I'm seeing that the PMAY and public sector contributions has been a big enabler. And it is both the sector really complemented each other. So what I actually putting it together is the comparison between private sector and public sector housing, which is mostly a PMAY, although there also is a private sector role to play. So from 2015 to 2022, PMAY produced 2 crore 29 lakhs houses in the different categories, majority of being in the EWS and LIG housing. During the period, the developer stock which got completed was around 35 lakhs houses. But in terms of value, from rural and urban together, the PMAY's total value in terms of rupees crore was 14 lakhs crore, while the private sector is around 24 lakh crore. So average house in the private sectors today stand close to 70 lakhs rupees per unit, in comparison to the PMAY, which is standing between 3 lakh rupees to 5 lakhs, depending upon the MIG and LIG. So this kind of a perspective which has happened, and this production also has happened because of the supply and the demand side interventions which the government did, which was a RERA, which is the changes over 24B provisions in the income tax acts, where they curtail the investor participations and most of the supply which is came in. In terms of there's one more slide which is there, that while the PMAY majority the supply was concentrated to EWS and MIG, which is the weaker sections, and their housing, the builders market in terms of the supply is around 3% in the EWS, LIG 16%, MIG 33%, MIG 2 and 27%, which is beyond all these ranges. But what is to be seen, that 27% of this supply contributes 60% in terms of the value. So my own sense is, I'm not really standing up and criticizing that the builder is not catering to the EWS and LIG's housing and all those things, because that is a prerogative of the government, because they could offer a cheaper housing and subsidized housing, because there was not much of the profit motive flats were offered to the rural and the urban poor at a cheaper cost, which a developer and the private sector can't really do it themselves, because they are working for the profit in that particular sense. But having said that, we are catering to all the stratas of the demand in the real estate sector. So you have got housing for poor, and so as the different other strata of the housing, which also has to be catered. Moving further, in terms of developers, the housing contributions, which is empirical assessment, we try to do it like, we are generating 2.2 crore homes, jobs in the from the real estate sector. So 85 lakhs from the labor from the constructions, 1 crore 27 lakhs from labor from the material, brokerage and marketing close to 6.26 lakhs, construction finance close to 13,000, and the mortgage companies employs 2.4 lakhs, this thing, and which is going to increase to 1.5, and the largely because schemes and the volumes really grow. So despite COVID and many other economic stress, what is best thing which has happened to the real estate sector, and especially residential real estate sector during the COVID time, the volumes really grew across the market. Sales also have started really showing. So if you look at FY 2021 is 2,69,000. So these are top 8 cities sales. And if I take the first half of the year, we see that we are moving at a highest ever pace in terms of the volumes. Inventory overhang also started easing up because the volume has started growing. So that's how the market is really behaving. And in terms of the investment, I see the flow of the money flow also have not, it's slowly improving, but having said that, it is much lower than earlier time. And these are my builders stocks recent data, which shows that we have priority sectors showing the growth, almost all the sectors showing growth. In the Tier 1 city, Tier 2 cities, there is a slight reduction. This is something which I had to offer. We did some empirical assessment and of what is the contributions of private sectors as well as the public sector's contributions. Both are complementary to each other. If the government had not brought the supply in the market would have remained speculative. Had they not brought the RERA, the market would not have attained the prudence production cycle, and that's something which has really happened. And I think this is a time we should celebrate what PMAY and the RERA has done to the real estate sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kapoor. And you made very interesting points regarding the performance of the public sector versus the private sector. So far as the real estate sector is concerned, in terms of numbers and values. While in terms of numbers, PMAY is far more than that of the private sector, but in terms of value, the game changes. And then thanks a lot for educating all of us on the sales number in terms of volume and the monetary value, and in terms of the unsold means the number of unsold stock and the total investment in the real estate sector. But your analysis raises a very important question. I'm not going to ask you that question right now, but I'm just giving all of the audience some food for thought. Now the question is, why private sector is not forthcoming in the low value housing? We just saw that the contribution of the private sector in the low value housing is about 3% only, and that is why government had to come up with schemes like PMAY and Rajiv Awas Yojana earlier. So if the private sector had filled that gap, there was no need for schemes like PMAY. So the question is, why private sector is not forthcoming? Is it the profit motive? Because they are not able to earn handsomely in the low-cost housing, or there may be various other reasons. Means purchasers, they don't have the facility to avail of any loan from the bank because they don't have the proper documentation and all that. There could be umpteen number of reasons for this being so. But as a policy maker, what I am interested in, what policy changes we can make to send the right kind of signals from the market to the private developers, so that they take up the low-cost housing also in a proper way. What kind of incentives and disincentives can be thought of in terms of GST, income tax, and there are so many other things, means additional FAR or TDR. Means when we are talking about urban planning, we have so many tools. So can we make use of those tools to incentivize the private sector to enter into the affordable housing or the low value housing? So thank you, Mr. Kapoor, once again. Now I would like to request our friend from Naredco, Mr. Mr. Patel, who is president of Naredco Gujarat, to say his say.
गुड मॉर्निंग. इज इट ऑडिबल? मेरी आवाज़ सुनाई दे रही है आपको? ठीक. इंडियन अर्बन हाउसिंग कॉन्क्लेव 2022 के ये कार्यक्रम में हमारे साथ उपस्थित श्री दिनेश कपिला जी, जो इकोनॉमिक एडवाइज़र है महुआ के, श्री किशोर भटीजा जी, जो के राहेजा ग्रुप के मैनेजिंग डायरेक्टर हैं, हमारे साथ डायस पे उपस्थित श्री पंकज कपूर जी, जो एमडी है लाइन्स एंड फोर्स के, श्री संतोष कुमार जी, जो एनरॉक के वाइस चेयरमैन हैं, और श्री पंकज कोठारी जी, जो क्रेडाई महाराष्ट्र के पूर्व वाइस प्रेसिडेंट रह चुके हैं. और हमारे साथ ऑडियंस में अभी उपस्थित हैं श्री योगेश भावसार जी, जो नारेडको गुजरात के वाइस प्रेसिडेंट हैं, और राजकोट से उपस्थित रियल एस्टेट डेवलपर और हमारे क्रेडाई के पूर्व ऑफिस बेरर रश्मि भाई. आप सबका इस फोरम में हार्दिक स्वागत है. गुजरात की ये पावन और प्रॉस्पेरस भूमि पर कल यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री और हमारे लोकनायक प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र भाई मोदी साहब ने हमारे अर्बन मंत्री हरदीप सिंह पुरी साहब के कर कमलों से इस कॉन्क्लेव का शुभ उद्घाटन किया है. और उसमें हमारे गुजरात के मुख्यमंत्री भूपेंद्र भाई पटेल, जो अर्बन मिनिस्टर भी हैं, उन्हीं के हाथों इस कॉन्क्लेव में बहुत सारी गुजरात की नई चीज़ें आपके सामने रखी गई हैं. मैं अपनी बात शुरू करने से पहले जो अर्बनाइजेशन हो रहा है उसके लिए एक छोटा सा गुजराती चुटकुला सुनाता हूँ. गुजरात के जाने माने लेखक विनोद भट्ट की ये बात है कि एक दिन कांकरिया लेक में कोई आदमी डूब रहा था, तो डूबने वाले को बचाने के लिए बूम जब लगाई, तब उसने बचाओ बचाओ के सामने बचाने वाले ने उसका नाम पूछा. उसने बोला मेरा नाम छगन है. तो दोबारा उसने एड्रेस पूछा. उसने बोला पहले मुझे बचाओ फिर एड्रेस पूछो. जैसे ही एड्रेस मिला वो भागता भागता एड्रेस पे गया और जाके उसने बताया कि जो छगन भाई अभी डूब रहे थे कांकरिया लेक में, उनका मकान आप मुझे रेंट पे दे दो. वो भाई साहब ने बोला कि आपको ये मकान रेंट पे नहीं दे सकता हूँ, क्योंकि जो मगन भाई ने धक्का दिया था उन्हीं को रेंट पे दे दिया है. ये 2050 में ऐसा होने वाला है. तो इसीलिए अर्बन सेक्टर में जो हाउसिंग डिमांड्स हैं उसको देखने का ये कॉन्क्लेव सबसे अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म है. इंडिया इज़ द फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग मेजर इकोनॉमी. अभी 5वें नंबर पे हैं. 3.5 ट्रिलियन की हमारी ये इकोनॉमी है. और ये इकोनॉमी में रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर इज द सेकेंड लार्जेस्ट एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन इंडस्ट्री, थर्ड लार्जेस्ट सेक्टर in the terms of FDI investment, contributing in 2022 7% of the country's GDP, रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर की बात कर रहा हूँ। और इंस्टीट्यूशनल इनफ्लो जो है वो 3.4 बिलियन US डॉलर है पहले 2022 के पहले 9 महीने में, और 2025 में रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर इंडिया का 65,000 करोड़ का टोटल होने जा रहा है, जिसमें से 21,000 करोड़ रुपीस एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेट होगा, उसमें से लेबर का। और 2030 में जो एक्सपेक्टेड रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर्स का टर्नओवर बताया जा रहा है दैट इज 1 ट्रिलियन US डॉलर, यानी 2021 में जो अभी 200 मिलियन है वो 1 ट्रिलियन डॉलर होने जा रहा है। ये पूरा इसलिए हो रहा है कि चेंजिंग द होल डेमोग्राफिक, सबकी लाइफस्टाइल बदल रही है, बिजनेस के जो मायने हैं वो बदल रहे हैं, नए नए स्टार्टअप आ रहे हैं, और रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर इज हेवीली सपोर्टेड बाय द इंडस्ट्रियल ग्रोथ ऑल्सो। जो आत्मनिर्भर भारत होने जा रहा है उसकी वजह से रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर को बहुत बड़ा बढ़ावा मिल जा रहा है। दूसरा, लोगों का इनकम लेवल भी बढ़ा है, इजी हाउसिंग लोन भी आई हुई है, और जिस तरह से न्यूक्लियर फैमिली का राइजिंग हो रहा है, मेरे हिसाब से रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर का आने वाले 10 साल में कुछ नया और लेवल होने जाने वाला है। अभी जितने भी हो रहे हैं उसमें अदर देन अफोर्डेबल हाउसिंग 90% सप्लाई रियल एस्टेट का है। अभी पंकज जी ने जैसे बताया कि अफोर्डेबल में अभी भी गवर्नमेंट का PMY जो योजना है उसका सप्लाई सबसे ज़्यादा है। उसका इम्पोर्टेंट रीज़न ये है कि जो रूरल सेक्टर है वहाँ पे जितने भी मकान बन रहे हैं, जो सेल्फ कंस्ट्रक्शन यूनिट है जिसमें लैंड पार्ट गवर्नमेंट या प्राइवेट सेक्टर का नहीं है, और जहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट मकान बना के दे रही है जिसमें भी लैंड पार्ट की कीमत नहीं गिनी गई है, वहाँ PMI योजना ज़्यादा सफल हो रही है। यानी अगर प्राइवेट सेक्टर में PMY योजना का रोल बढ़ाना है तो हमको उतने सेक्टर का लो इनकम हाउसिंग के लिए उतना फ्री FSI देने की आवश्यकता है। तो मेरे हिसाब से PMI योजना का हम ज़्यादा रियल एस्टेट प्राइवेट सेक्टर में भी काम कर पाएंगे। अभी मैं गुजरात की बात करूं तो गुजरात में 6.25 करोड़ का पॉपुलेशन है, और उसमें से 39.5% अर्बनाइजेशन हो रहा है, यानी 2 करोड़ 40 लाख लोग 26 टायर 1 एंड टायर 2 सिटी में रहते हैं। और उसमें से अगर 2027 का हम कैलकुलेशन करें तो इन 2027 द अर्बनाइजेशन विल बी एक्सपेक्टिंग 52%, यानी कि 4 करोड़ people will stay in this 26 tier 1 and tier 2 cities, and there is a need of 50 lakhs another housing in Gujarat 26 cities in coming 5 years. In that circumstances हम अभी सप्लाई कर रहे हैं only 1.5 lakh housing per year maximum। उसके सामने हमें पर ईयर 10 लाख हाउसिंग बनाने हैं, तो आने वाले 10 साल रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर के लिए बहुत बड़ा ग्रोथ देने वाले हैं। और उसके सामने हमें गवर्नमेंट से और प्राइवेट लोकल बॉडी से ज़्यादा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की आवश्यकता है। और साथ में जो 29% रेंटल हाउसिंग का भी बढ़ रहा है, तो 29% डिमांड जो रेंटल हाउसिंग की बढ़ रही है उसमें भी जैसे फॉरेन कंट्रीज में होते हैं लाइक दैट इंडिया के और गुजरात के रियल एस्टेट डेवलपर को रेंटल हाउसिंग के सेक्टर में भी ज़्यादा सोचने की आवश्यकता है। फुल्ली सस्टेनेबल जो स्काई स्केपर्स बनते हैं उसके साथ साथ फुल्ली सिक्योर्ड गेटेड कम्युनिटी बनती है, वो सबका जो स्टैंडर्ड था बिफोर 10 इयर्स और अभी जो स्टैंडर्ड्स है दोनों में बहुत बड़ा अंतर आ गया है। और वेल डिजाइन कमर्शियल कॉम्प्लेक्स के साथ जैसे राहेजा ग्रुप के बहुत बड़े मॉल्स भी आ रहे हैं, ऐसे बहुत सारे सेक्टर्स टायर 1 की जगह टायर 2 एंड टायर 3 सिटीज़ में भी ऐसे अच्छे कमर्शियल कॉम्प्लेक्स और ऐसे अच्छे मॉल्स बनने लगे हैं, क्योंकि आत्मनिर्भर भारत में टायर 2 एंड टायर 3 सिटीज़ में भी इंडस्ट्रियल डेवलपमेंट हो रहा है। दूसरा, इसका रेप्लिका अगर सही तरीके में करना है तो हमें सैटेलाइट हाउसिंग्स कॉलोनी के बारे में सोचना पड़ेगा। और इस तरह के सैटेलाइट हाउसिंग कॉलोनी के लिए मास ट्रांसपोर्टेशन एंड उसका रिटेन करने के लिए अच्छा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की आवश्यकता रहेगी। तो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ ये है कि प्राइवेट एंड गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर को एक दूसरे के साथ ताल मिला के 10 साल के डेवलपमेंट प्लान लोगों को देने पड़ेंगे। गुजरात इज वन ऑफ द बेस्ट एग्जाम्पल इन द पब्लिक प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप कंसिडरिंग द टाउन प्लानिंग स्कीम्स। गुजरात का जो टाउन प्लानिंग एक्ट है विच इज एंडोर्स इन 1976, उसमें पहले 27% कपिला जी उसका हिस्सा लैंड का कंट्रीब्यूट किया जाता था, दैट वाज अबाउट द लैंड पुलिंग। अभी वो 40% से लेके 50% इज द लैंड पुलिंग फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट साइड, और उसमें से 15% गवर्नमेंट या तो लोकल अथॉरिटीज ऑक्शन के लिए जगह रखती हैं, और वो 15% ऑक्शन के लैंड एज वेल एज दी बेटरमेंट एंड डेवलपमेंट चार्जेस से पूरी टीपी स्कीम का इंक्लूडिंग मास ट्रांसपोर्टेशन उसका इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बनाया जा सकता है। और इसीलिए गुजरात के जो टाउन प्लानिंग ऑफिसर्स हैं और गुजरात की टाउन प्लानिंग स्कीम का इम्प्लीमेंटेशन है, उसका विजिट करने के लिए देश के दूसरे गणमान्य राज्यों से भी प्रतिनिधि मंडल गुजरात में आते रहते हैं। तो मेरे हिसाब से पूरे देश भर में ये टाउन प्लानिंग एक्ट का अमलीकरण करने के लिए गुजरात इज दी मॉडल टाउन प्लानिंग एक्ट। मगर उसके साथ साथ उसकी वजह से जो लैंड कॉस्टली हो रही है, तो उसमें हमको अगर एक्स्ट्रा एफएसआई ओनली फॉर द अफोर्डेबल हाउसिंग दिया जाए, तो मेरे हिसाब से आने वाले सालों में प्रधानमंत्री जी का जो सपना है हाउसिंग फॉर ऑल, उसको करने में रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर बहुत अच्छा अपना चीज़ प्रदान कर सकता है। और नारेडको के लेवल पे, नारेडको नेशनल एज वेल एज नारेडको गुजरात से हम स्किल डेवलपमेंट में भी जो अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं उसको भी बढ़ावा लेने के लिए पब्लिक प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप के इस तरह के एग्जाम्पल नए इम्प्लीमेंट किया जा सकता है। गुजरात की पावन भूमि पे आप सब गुजरात के बाहर से आए हैं, गुजरात के नारेडको के मैं प्रेसिडेंट होने के नाते आप सबका गुजरात की पावन और प्रॉस्पेरस भूमि पे हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूं, और यहाँ पे बैठे सभी लोगों को आने वाले सालों में देश का जो ग्रोथ इंजन है वो गुजरात बनेगा, उसका विश्वास भी देता हूं। आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया।
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया पटेल साहब, आपने नरेडको गुजरात का हमें पर्सपेक्टिव दिया। गुजरात में रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर में क्या डेवलपमेंट्स हो रही हैं और आने वाले 10 साल में क्या होने वाला है या क्या होना चाहिए, उसके बारे में भी आपने हमें एजुकेट किया। और स्पेशली आपने जो पीपीपी मॉडल की सक्सेस के बारे में बताया, जैसे टाउन प्लानिंग स्कीम है आपकी, तो उसके बारे में भी आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। और इसके बारे में मैं बताना चाहता हूँ कि अभी जून में एक धर्मशाला में कॉन्फ्रेंस हुई थी अर्बन गवर्नेंस के ऊपर, जिसमें माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी भी वहाँ आए हुए थे। तो उसमें अर्बन गवर्नेंस के टॉपिक पे हमें ये मौका मिला था कि हम गुजरात की जो टाउन प्लानिंग स्कीम है उसकी सक्सेस जो है, सक्सेस स्टोरी, वो प्रधानमंत्री जी को बता पाएँ। क्योंकि मुझे ऐसा बताया गया था कि जब वो यहाँ पे सीएम थे उन्होंने ही ये चीज़ यहाँ पे स्टार्ट करी थी, तो हमने उनको वहाँ पर भी बताया और लोकल एरिया प्लानिंग स्कीम के बारे में भी बताया। तो आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। लैंड पूलिंग दिल्ली में भी चालू हुई है, बट अभी उतना सक्सेसफुल नहीं हो पा रही है। तो होपफुली डीडीए विल हैव समथिंग टू लर्न फ्रॉम गुजरात मॉडल ऑल्सो। एंड लैंड पूलिंग यहाँ कैसे सक्सेसफुल हो रही है, कैसे टीपीएस आप चला रहे हैं, तो मैं वापस जाके डीडीए वालों को बोलूँगा, मेरे जो फ्रेंड्स हैं डीडीए में, कि वो यहाँ गुजरात मॉडल से सीखें। जी जी,
जो लैंड पुलिंग का ग्रेटेस्ट एग्जाम्पल है, जो प्रधानमंत्री जब गुजरात के मुख्यमंत्री थे उस वक्त अहमदाबाद के सराउंडिंग में 60 मीटर यानी 200 फीट चौड़ा रिंग रोड बनाने की आवश्यकता हुई। वो रिंग रोड के लिए गवर्नमेंट को लैंड या तो एक्विजिट कर सकते थे, तो उन्होंने बताया कि ये लैंड एक्विजिट करने के बजाय हम उसको टाउन प्लानिंग स्कीम में लेते थे। और इंडिया का पहला 76 किलोमीटर राउंड सर्कुलर रिंग रोड ऐसा है कि जिसमें सारे लैंड ओनर्स इंक्लूडिंग द फार्मर्स, उन्होंने सामने से लैंड दे दिया टीपी स्कीम बनने से पहले, और विदाउट सिंगल लीगल कोई भी केस नहीं हुआ, और 76 किलोमीटर का रिंग रोड गुजरात को पहला मिला। That was a great part.
बिल्कुल। बिल्कुल। इसके साथ ही साथ कुछ वहाँ पर एक अफोर्डेबल हाउसिंग का भी कॉरिडोर बनाया गया था जब प्रधानमंत्री जी इधर थे, तो वो बहुत सक्सेस स्टोरी है। बट आई थिंक देश के दूसरे स्टेट्स के लोगों को इसके बारे में ज़्यादा पता नहीं है। तो हमारा ये मतलब होना चाहिए आइडिया कि ये जो सक्सेसेस हैं गुजरात की, इसकी दूसरे लोगों को भी पता लगे, ताकि नॉलेज शेयरिंग हो, क्रॉस लर्निंग हो, वो आपसे सीखें, आप उनसे सीखें। तो इसी के साथ मैं अगेन आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ। और अब मैं इनवाइट करना चाहता हूँ मिस्टर कुमार फ्रॉम एनारॉक, कि वो एनारॉक का पर्सपेक्टिव दे हमें। मिस्टर कुमार।
Thank you, Kapila ji. Good afternoon, everyone. Just to give my introduction, I am Santosh Kumar. I am the Vice Chairman of Anarok Property Consultants, and also we are the investment advisory company. We have got around 2,000 people working in our 14 offices across India, and we have got 2 operations in Middle East, as well as we have got our own office in Ahmedabad as well. We are the first one to enter into Ahmedabad, Gujarat, and we have got my city head who is leading the operation in Gujarat, who is Mandir Vinayak is there. He will also introduce each one of you, during the lunch time. So, you would have understood some of the thoughts which has been shared by our distinguished guest, who are the experts in the real estate arena, and they have given their own thoughts, how the real estate has grown over a period of time, and how it is going to mold in the next 30 to 40 years, 30 to 40 coming years, how the real estate is going to grow, how the real estate perspective is going to change, and how the government and private partnership is going to work towards achieving the Prime Minister's goal of housing for all in the coming years. So my perspective is, I would like to share the thought of one of the eminent personalities. A world in which only a few can afford housing is not sustainable. Everyone deserves a safe place if they wanted to have a security, a safer place, safer environment. So only these safer places can be provided by the real estate developers or the government. If you look at the entire population, we have a 1.3 billion people today in India, which is more or comparable to China. And today, what the real estate opportunities available in China, if you compare it with India, India is nowhere as far as the opportunity is concerned. There is a huge amount of opportunities is available for everyone, be it is government or the financial institutions or the private developers. What we are currently targeting is a small component of the opportunities which is available in the marketplace. So Kishore ji has spoken about various assets classes, various of the opportunities available in the assets classes. If you look at the 85% of the Indian real estate is the residential real estate. Only 15% is the other asset classes. If you look at office spaces, the warehousing and logistics, the senior living, the second homes or the retirement homes, all these are comprises of 15% of the Indian real estate. The 85%, the remaining 85% is the Indian real estate. That's the reason, if you look at the opportunities available in the residential real estate is huge. So what is the current state of the Indian housing sector? In the last 10 years, the private developers would have developed around 28 or maybe 30 lakhs dwelling units. And in the same time, the sales, on the one side, the supply of around 30 lakhs units came into the market, and at the same time, around 28 to 30 lakhs of sales took place during the same period. So whatever the supply came into the market got sold and the developers were able to fulfill their commitment to the society. As I said, around 85% of the Indian real estate is the residential. The 20% of the entire contribution has come in from tier 2 cities. If you look at, some of the smaller cities is also equally contributing to the growth of the Indian real estate. 20%, of the tier 2 cities, like places like, Rai Bareli, Gorakhpur, Bareilly, Nagpur, these are the cities, which is equally contributing to the growth of residential real estate in India. So, what are the, the large volume of a bigger scale for the private participation? What are some of the impetus which is really contributing to the growth of affordable housing in India? If you look at Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, there are plenty of opportunities are available for the EWS, LIG and MIG housing categories, which is going to fulfill the urban housing desire or urban housing requirement. Currently, there are around 1.23 crores houses sanctioned and over 1.04 crores of houses have been grounded, which is nearly 4x of the private participation. If you look at 28 lakh houses is being developed by the private developers, equally government has developed around 1.28 crores of housing. So the commitment of the government on developing the houses is much larger, much more visible. 1.28 crores versus the 28 lakhs. Of the total investment which has been made by the government is around 2.03 lakh crores in order to fulfilling the 1.283 crores development. But if you wanted to accomplish the housing for all, 8.3 lakhs crores of investment is required for the government to fund this project, which is a huge investment, and this cannot be accomplished unless the role of private players will also come in. There's a huge amount of, like Pankaj said, there's a huge amount of funding is available at this moment. There are foreign investment which is coming into India. Even the Indian financial institution also putting in the money on the real estate side. But unless the private developers also come into this play, the housing for all, the dream which the Prime Minister has shown, will not get accomplished. What are the drivers for Indian housing market? There is a large scale of urbanization which is happening. The people are migrating from rural areas to the urban areas, and there's a huge amount of residential requirement, which is primarily because driven by the employment, because the cities which we are currently seeing a lot of employment generation from within the IT sector, the disposable income of the Indians, who, especially in the urban areas, are really increasing. The low mortgage to the GDP ratio is also very low right now. And if you look at the contribution of China on the mortgage is around 18%, whereas India is currently at 11%. Only 11% of the people go for mortgages as compared to 18% in China, 39% in Japan, and 52% in the US. So the finances are available, but people are not utilizing the mortgages which are available. There are various factors. The banks are also raised. There are KYCs, which is really creating problem for the customers to go and get the mortgages to participate in the housing sector. There is a huge amount of housing in the urban area shortage. There are huge amount of shortages are there, and which government is committed. At this moment, there is a 30 million shortages of urban houses, which if we wanted to fulfill that, that task, huge amount of investment is required, huge amount of participation for all the stakeholders is there. There's also a low amount of urban home ownership. People does not have the own houses. Many of the people in the urban areas are staying in the rental houses. There is a millennials who are coming into the market. There's a millennials who come just passed out from colleges, various institutions, who is getting the income. They are not being able to get the houses which they can afford. So if you create a houses which is conducive for these millennials, there is a huge amount of demand which is going to come for the millennials. There is everyone spoke about the low contribution of the real estate on the GDP. Currently India's contribution, real estate contribution on the GDP is around 6%. In China, the contribution is around 13%, around 29%. And by 2025, if we look at India's contribution on the real estate side, by 2020 it's going to go up to 13%. But look at the opportunities available. Where is China at 29% of their GDP, the real estate contribution, whereas in India we are currently at 6%. So look at the opportunity for everyone to contribute. So the final point which I wanted to touch upon is basically the question which Mr. Kapila has asked: what can the government do to encourage the private participation? What needs to be done from the government side to encourage the private people to come into the role? So the first and foremost is the process of enabling availability of the land parcels. So create infrastructure. If you create more and more infrastructure, the availability of the land on an affordable prices is going to benefit many of the private players to come in and play the role of a real estate developer if we really wanted to promote affordable segment. When we are talking about affordability, I think three things are very, very important. One is affordability in price, affordability in maintenance, and affordability on commutation. These are the three factors which really command the affordability. If we have been able to provide these three parameters, I think the success of the Prime Minister's vision will be successful. We'll have to have affordable housing, we'll have to have affordable commutation, which is basically the transportation, and also affordability of the maintenances. So these three are the areas which really helps the affordable houses to success. Secondly, expedite the process of the approvals. Today it takes a lot of time for the developers to secure the approvals from the authorities. If we simplify the approval of the approval from the authorities, I think achieving the development of the affordable houses will be much, much faster, and the private players will be able to play their roles. Encourage the incentives for the private developers. What we have seen during the last few years, whichever the state government who has relaxed FSI norms, which has relaxed TDI norms, they have been able to clearly play a bigger role in bringing in the private players to the affordable housing. Provide tax benefits to the developers. There have been a lot of encouragement from the government, Ministry of Finance, in order to providing the incentives for the developers who comes in the affordable segment. But I also encourage the government to announce the tax simplification or tax exemption for the machineries or the equipment which has been used for the developing the houses, so that they also get benefit and it becomes affordable for the private players to play a role. Also create an environment which helps the private developers to innovate on the construction side. I think very important for many of the stakeholders to play a role on the housing affordable housing if they bring in innovation. Innovation not only in developing the houses, it is also innovation in the raw materials which is being used by the construction or the contractor players, innovation in the form of bringing in plant and machinery, bringing in the raw material which is required for the developing the affordable houses, like for example sand, cement. There are many ways wherein these cements can be become very, very affordable prices if we can bring in more and more innovation on those industries as well. So the encouraging the innovations in the real estate sector is very, very important. I think government should look at providing some sort of encouragement, financial incentives to those sectors who comes and start these initiatives in order to encourage the affordable houses. So it is not only the role of the government to provide the houses for the larger segment of the society. It is every players, be it is financial institution, be it is private players, be it is government authorities, everyone. It is the role of everyone to participate and encourage to achieve the Prime Minister's vision of providing housing for all. So thank you so much. Thanks for hearing me patiently. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar, for such an elaborative talk about what ails our real estate sector and what are the possible solutions. And you spoke about China versus India in terms of opportunities. And I was thinking at that time, okay, we are not making use of the opportunities. So what are the low-hanging fruits that are available to the developers and the private players right now, vis-a-vis China, which we can avail of immediately in the near future?
Hello. Yeah. So as you rightly said, China has really on the real estate has built a lot of development, which is recently has become a kind of a ghost town as well. But many of the assets classes, the opportunities which were available in China was huge. I think one of the biggest learning from what happened in China was the bringing in the regulator to manage the real estate development at this moment in India, which has really encouraged and supported the real estate developers in having a very sustainable development across these cities. I think this is one of the things, because in China, everything is being controlled by the government. There are no regulating authorities which looks into various aspects of the requirement of the developers. But definitely, India today, we have a very sustainable or a very self-regulated authority which really monitors the progress of the development, so that the customer does not get fooled or does not get the return on their investment what they have been able to make. So but on the opportunity side, there are a lot of segment, as Kishore mentioned in his presentation, on the hospitality side. Immediately after the COVID, there are new areas which has really come up, like for example, warehousing and industrial is really growing much faster than what everyone has expected. Similarly, on the senior living, which is like retirement homes, is really coming up in a big way. There's a huge opportunity for the developer to focus upon. Equally, student housing is also coming up very significantly. I think these are the various opportunities available to the developer in tapping these opportunities.
Thanks again, Mr. Kumar. And there are a lot of issues you touched upon, and one important thing was about the low levels of mortgages in India. And since this is an issue which requires in-depth research, I am asking my Mahua team to note it down for our own future research, because this is an important indicator, and we must find out what are the reasons for low levels of mortgages in India and what can be done to encourage it. And India-China again means one point I wanted to make was that China opened up very early, means as compared to India. China started opening up in early 80s, whereas our process of liberalization, privatization and globalization, it began in 91 when we had that crisis and we had to mortgage some gold also. So at that time the economy was opened up, and we are still means 15 years behind China. So my sincere belief is that as we move along, as we move forward, we are going to see huge levels of growth and development, which China saw between 2005 to 2020. So let us hope for the best. And you also spoke about the tax benefit to the developers. Already there are a lot of tax benefits, and especially I would like to highlight Section 80 IBA of the Income Tax Act, where for affordable housing 100% income tax exemption is already available, and there were many other tax benefits. But the real issue is how do we gauge the impact of these measures, whether they are actually working on the ground or not. So again, this requires a deep research and analysis, and I am asking my Mahua team to note this down also. And steel and cement, we had a roller coaster ride very recently. Steel prices and cement prices, they went up, and now again they are back to the earlier position. But I think this variability in the prices of the raw material of the housing or the real estate sector is not good. We should have stable pricing regime, so that the developers are able to predict what is going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years and then plan their products accordingly. Now, last but not the least, I would like to request Mr. Kothari from CREDAI to give his perspective on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Dignity on the dais, of the dais, my friends. I am from CREDAI. CREDAI is a national organization, Confederation of Real Estate Developers of India. We have more than 14,000 members across the India, and our main role is to motivate our members to we are doing the study tours, trainings and motivational speeches to our members. That is सबका साथ सबका विकास. सर, जैसे संतोष जी ने बताया अभी 85% जो कंस्ट्रक्शंस रियल एस्टेट में हो रहा है वो रियल एस्टेट रेसिडेंशियल डेवलपमेंट में हो रहा है. उसके आगे मैं कहना चाहूँगा उन 85% में 70% जो कंस्ट्रक्शन की डिमांड है वो बिलो 6 लाख इनकम ग्रुप वालों के लिए है. और इसमें हम टियर 2, टियर 3, टियर 4 जो सिटीज़ है उसके जो भी जितने भी डेवलपर्स हैं वो काफ़ी इसको PMAY प्रोजेक्ट से सिमिलर वर्किंग करते हैं. जो कॉस्ट ऑफ यूनिट्स जो आती है PMAY प्रोजेक्ट की वो ही सेम लगभग उसके करीबन लगभग हमारे प्राइवेट डेवलपर्स भी उसमें काम करते हैं, जबकि उनको कोई भी असिस्टेंस रहता नहीं है. प्राइवेट डेवलपर्स अपने ओन लिमिटेशंस पर प्रोजेक्ट करते हैं, उनको कोई लगभग टैक्स बेनिफिट नहीं मिलता है. तो मैं गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ हाउसिंग का भी बहुत शुक्रगुजार हूँ कि वो पर्टिकुलरली मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ हाउसिंग से बहुत अच्छा बैकअप और सपोर्ट मिलता है. वी आर डूइंग PMAY प्रोजेक्ट्स इन रूरल एरियाज़, अर्बन एरियाज़. हम लोग स्पेशली जैसे सर ने बताया कि लोअर एंड पे ये क्यों नहीं सफल हो रहा है नीचे के, तो सर मेजरली जो इसमें कंस्टेंट आ रहा है, जैसे एक एवरेज टिकट साइज ऑफ द बिलो 30 स्क्वायर मीटर होम इज़ 12.5 लाख इज एवरेज। और कोई भी EWS के पास 12.5 लाख रुपए कैश कंपोनेंट नहीं है, 2-2.5 लाख रुपए सब्सिडी मिलती है। कोई भी इंसान लाख, 1.5 लाख, 2 लाख तक खड़ा कर सकता है, बचे हुआ उसको होम लोन असिस्टेंस होना। वेराज गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया की क्रेडिट रिस्क गारंटी फंड CRGFS, ये फंड भी अवेलेबल है अप टू 8 लाख रुपीज़। 2014 में वो उसकी लिमिट बढ़ा के अप टू 8 लाख किया था, जो NHB द्वारा ऑपरेट किया जा रहा है। बड़ा खेत के साथ कहना पड़ता है, हम लोग कुछ प्रोजेक्ट कर रहे हैं, उसमें 2 साल से OC आके पड़ा है। गवर्नमेंट ऑफ महाराष्ट्र का प्रोजेक्ट है अंडर PMAY, बट उनको लोन असिस्टेंस नहीं मिल रहा है क्योंकि कोई बैंक के पास प्रोडक्ट नहीं है। एक तरफ गवर्नमेंट ऑफ महाराष्ट्र इंडिया CRGFS का सपोर्ट कवर दे रहा है, सेकेंड तरफ बैंक्स उसके पास कोई प्रोडक्ट नहीं है। तो मैं गवर्नमेंट से माध्यम से ये अपील करना चाहूँगा, अगर इस योजना को रूट कॉज तक सफल करना है तो हम प्राइवेट डेवलपर्स उसके लिए प्रोएक्टिवली काम करने को तैयार है। हम लोगों ने एग्जाम्पल के तौर पे बोलूँगा, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ महाराष्ट्र का 19.40 लाख होम्स का 2022 तक डिमांड था, जिसको क्रेडाई महाराष्ट्र ने सर 6 लाख to 7 लाख घर बनाने का MOU साइन किया था इन 2018। अनफॉर्चुनेटली कई जगह पे मकान बने, प्रोजेक्ट बन रहे हैं, बट होम लोन असिस्टेंस नहीं मिल रहा है, और जो मिलता है वो हाईयर रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट मिलता है। मतलब एक तरफ EWS वालों को पहले ही उनके इनकम कफ और हाईयर लेंगे तो और इको बैलेंस उनका बिगड़ जाएगा। तो अगर हमको सबका साथ सबका विकास करना है, कंस्ट्रक्शन की एक्टिविटी को प्रमोट करना है, PMAY को सबको घर देना है, सबको मकान देना है, तो डेफिनेटली हम डेवलपर्स लोग आगे आके काम करने को तैयार है। सपोर्ट बहुत ज़्यादा होना नहीं, ओनली बैंक असिस्टेंस टू बेनिफिशियरीज। जैसे उसमें कुछ उनका सिविल का इशू आता है क्योंकि वो लोग उतने जानकार नहीं होते हैं, तो ईज इन सिविल्स दिया तो भी काफ़ी उनको सपोर्ट होगा। लाइक RBI के थ्रू उनको हर बैंक को, HFC को एक प्रोडक्ट इसमें इस कैटेगरी के लिए डिज़ाइन किया तो और बेटर होगा। साथ ही हम लोग क्रेडाई में एक लिविंग टू लग्जरी, मतलब EWS, MIG, LIG वालों को भी लग्जरी लाइफस्टाइल जीना, इसके लिए हम लोग ट्रेनिंग्स दे रहे हैं। इवन हम लोग प्रमोट कर रहे हैं 10 ईयर मेंटेनेंस फ्री स्कीम्स, 10 ईयर मेंटेनेंस फ्री विथ हाईटेक अम्यूनिटीज़। हम लोग भी कई Tier 2, Tier 3 वाले की शहर वाले जो लोग हैं उनको अम्यूनिटी कहीं पीछे न रह जाए, इस तरह से हम लोग उनके लग्जरी लाइफस्टाइल को भी अपग्रेड कर रहे हैं। उनका गार्बेज वहीं पे यूटिलाइज हो, रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग हर प्रोजेक्ट में हो रहा है, सोलर सिस्टम से उनका मेंटेनेंस को कैटर कर, सस्टेनेबल मेंटेनेंस कैसा होगा उस पर भी हम लोग वर्किंग कर रहे हैं। हम लोग क्रेडाई में अलग अलग कमिटीज़ पे काम करते हैं, कंटिन्यूस प्रोसेस है हमारा। स्किल डेवलपमेंट पे हम लोग काफ़ी काम कर रहे हैं। और एक रिक्वेस्ट और था कि पॉलिसी जो पैरामीटर्स बनते हैं उसको एट ए ग्लांस होना चाहिए, वो उसके एप्लीकेशन फॉर्मेट्स, DPR के ड्राफ्ट्स, ये सब कुछ वेबसाइट पे क्रिस्टल क्लियर होना, ताकि किसी के ऊपर डिपेंडेंसी नहीं होना चाहिए। अगर ये इसको फास्ट करना है, नेशन का एक बड़ा कंट्रीब्यूशन करना है, तो डेफिनेटली क्रेडाई इज ऑलवेज लुकिंग टुवर्ड्स द अपॉर्चुनिटी। थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Thank you, Kothari Sahab. Thank you so much. So we are almost at the end of the session. So I would just like to conclude whatever has been discussed today. Number one point which has emerged is that urbanization is an irreversible process, and it is going to happen irrespective of whatever happens elsewhere. So we are going to urbanize and urbanize very fast, and by 2050 half of our population will be urban. So which means that around 85 to 90 crore people will be living in urban areas. So which means that whatever we have created or constructed in the last 75 years, we will have to construct much more than that in the coming 25 to 30 years. So which again complements the point raised by Mr. Kumar that we have a lot of opportunities in the real estate sector, and there are so many low-hanging fruits, but I don't know why developers are not thinking out of the box. So that is number one point. Secondly, my own personal feeling is that we need a systems approach where everybody works in tandem instead of working in silos. Because here all the stakeholders means they are working in silos. They don't know what is happening in the other sector. Banks, they are only interested in their own protection of capital rather than thinking about the growth of the economy or growth of the real estate sector, and so on and so forth. So second point is we all need to work in tandem, and we need to promote PPP model. I hope everybody is in agreement with me on this, because everybody laid stress on the PPP, and then I think we need some new ideas also. In Canada or US, you have something called motor home or mobile homes, and you have this concept of retirement homes. So we need to come up with these concepts here in India also, and also we need to adopt the latest technology. Our ministry conducted the Global Housing Technology Challenge, and a lot of new technologies were identified. I think now it is time to mainstream those new technology, because they are cheaper and faster. So that can help us in achieving our goals much earlier. And finally, means one thing which is required in all sectors, but at least in real estate sector, I think it is very important that how to make the market work for the poor. That is the most important thing. Means the success story of the telecom sector in the country, it could be achieved only because the right kind of signals were emanating from the market. Similarly, if we want to have success of the real estate sector in the country, we need the market to function properly, and we need the market to convey the right kind of signals to the stakeholders. Then we can achieve our goals much faster and in a much efficient way. Finally, I would end with thanking all the panelists for sparing their valuable time, for coming up to Rajkot and sharing their thoughts with us on this very important topic. And also thanks to all the people who are sitting in the hall for listening to us so patiently. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kapila sir. Thank you to all the panelists for this wonderful session. Now I would request my Director Housing, Sri Mahesh Kumar ji, to kindly hand over the small, I should not say small because it's word, tallest statue, a statue of unity. It's a symbol you will always remember as a token of respect. So, Mahesh sir, kindly. Thank you. Please clap.
अर्बन हाउसिंग डिपार्टमेंट के त्रिपाठी जी और दूसरे जो यहाँ के ऑफिशियल्स हैं उनको बहुत धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ, और दिनेश कपिला जी को खास करके, क्योंकि इंडियन स्टैंडर्ड टाइम में ये कार्यक्रम 11:45 की जगह 11:44 पे स्टार्ट हुआ और टाइमली 1:20 से पहले खत्म हुआ. सो वी क्लैप फॉर द ऑडियंस ऑल्सो. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
One sec. May I request my sir to be on stage, please? And the last statue of unity, Sardar Patel साहब का, Kapila sir, please may kindly hand it over to our director, Mr. Mahesh Kumar ji. Thank you. Thank you to all the panelists. There is a lunch at the other side in a food and beverage section. So, एक ग्रुप फोटो के लिए सारे हाउसिंग डिवीजन के सिद्धांत जी, शैलेश जी, राजीव जी, आनंद जी एंड किडाई से एक लोग हमारे नरेटको से एक आए हैं. जेंटलमैन, यू ऑल ऑफ यू में प्लीज कम ऑन द स्टेज. एंड सर, आई वुड लाइक टू इन्फॉर्म यू, देयर इज वन लेडी सिटिंग, दे आर अ स्टूडेंट फ्रॉम द सेप्ट. all the discussion which you have done, all the panelists, they made a infographic live. So live, you can show it. Guys, these are 3-4 students from SAPT University and they have made, please show it to all of the panelists. Whatever you have discussed, they have made it live. You see this and it will be shown in that session. Come on, aajo, come on. आप भी आ जाओ. I would request the panelists to kindly have a look of this poster which they have prepared. Please, Kapila sir को दिखाइए. Whatever you were discussing, they have made it live, and this is they've been doing since last hour all events which happens all across country, and it is happening. All the SAPT students are already doing this activity across all the panel discussion which are happening parallelly in the different halls. Thank you so much, students. May I request the have one group discussion, group photograph after this. Jatin, come.
Picture in the